Welcome to Storytime with Gramps, where every story becomes an adventure.
What if I told you that the most powerful magic in the world isn't in a wand, a spell, or a crown, but in something you already carry inside you, right now, as you listen to my voice? Close your eyes for just a moment. Can you feel it? Good. Now open them, because this story is about to change the way you see everything. In a village so small it had no name on any map, there lived a girl named Zara, and Zara had a secret. Every time she cried, her tears didn't fall like water. They fell like gold. Not because she was magical, not because she was chosen, but because years ago, on the night her mother died, an old woman passing through their village whispered something into the sleeping child's ear. Nobody knew what she said, not even Zara. She had grown up in the house of her aunt, a sharp-tongued woman named Dara, who had 2 daughters of her own, Liz, who was vain as a mirror, and Kala, who was cruel as winter frost. They knew about the golden tears, and they never, ever let Zara forget it.
Cry for us, golden girl. We need new earrings.
Zara learned quickly not to cry. Not here, not ever. She pressed her feelings so deep inside herself that she forgot what joy even felt like. She cooked, she cleaned, she carried water from the well before sunrise, when the world was still dark and nobody could see her face. And every morning, she whispered the same prayer to the sky.
Everyone is listening, please. Just let me feel something real again.
Then, one morning, everything changed. Aunt Dara came rushing in with wild eyes and a rolled-up piece of paper. "The prince is choosing a bride," she announced breathlessly. "Every girl in the kingdom is invited to the Crystal Spring Festival. One girl will be chosen. One." Liz and Kala screamed with excitement. Zara said nothing. She turned back to stirring the pot. "Not you," Aunt Dara snapped, before Zara could even look up. "You'll stay and watch the house."
Not you. You'll stay and watch the house.
That night, after the house went quiet, Zara sat alone by the window. The moon was full and heavy, like it was trying to tell her something. And then she heard it. A sound, small and wounded, coming from just outside the door. She opened it. There, on the cold stone step, was the most peculiar creature she had ever seen. It looked like a fox, and its eyes glowed like 2 tiny lanterns. One of its legs was twisted and bleeding, caught in a wire trap someone had carelessly left near the road. Zara didn't think. She just knelt down. "Shh," she whispered. "I've got you! I've got you!" Her hands trembled as she worked the wire loose. The fox whimpered. It bit her finger, not hard, but hard enough to draw blood. She didn't pull away. "It's okay," she said softly. "I know what it's like to be trapped." When the wire finally came free, the fox looked up at her with those lantern eyes, and for one impossible second, Zara felt something. Warmth, real warmth, deep in her chest. One tear escaped before she could stop it. It hit the ground and rang out like a tiny bell ting, and where it landed, a single golden flower bloomed in the dark soil. The fox stared at the flower. Then it stared at Zara, and then it spoke. "I have been waiting," it said, in a voice like wind through old trees, "for someone who would bleed to help a stranger." Zara scrambled back. You can. Speak?" "Yes." The fox stood, and its broken leg was whole again. "I am older than this kingdom, older than its kings, and I owe you a debt, Zara of No Name Village." "How do you know my name?" The fox smiled, and foxes should not be able to smile, and yet this one did it beautifully. "I have known your name since before you were born. Your mother knew me well." Zara's breath stopped. "She asked me to find you," the fox continued, "when you were ready." "Ready for what?" The fox tilted its head toward the road that wound up into the moonlit hills. "To find out what the old woman whispered." They walked together through the night, up a path Zara had never seen before, to a place that somehow felt like a memory, a tiny house built entirely of pale white wood, glowing from the inside like a lantern in a storm. Inside, an ancient woman sat weaving. She looked up, and her eyes were the same lantern gold as the fox's. "You came," she said simply. "What did you whisper to me?" Zara asked, without even meaning to. "The night my mother died." "What did you say?" The old woman set down her weaving. "I whispered the truth," she said, "that your tears are not a curse. They are not a trick. They are not something for others to harvest." She leaned forward. "Your tears are gold because your grief is real, because your love is real, because you are real in a world full of people pretending." The words hit Zara like sunlight after a long winter.
I whispered the truth. Your tears are gold because your grief is real, because your love is real, because you are real in a world full of people pretending.
"The magic was never in the tears," the woman continued. "It was always in the heart that made them." She reached out and placed something in Zara's palm. A seed, small, dark, and faintly warm. "Plant this at the crystal spring," she said, "and you will understand everything." Zara arrived at the festival at dawn, just as it was beginning, dusty from the road, with wild hair and no fine dress and no invitation. The guards stopped her at the gate. And here, dear children, is where the story turns. Because Liz and Calla were already inside, and when they saw Zara at the gate, they didn't look embarrassed. They laughed. "Look," Calla called out to the crowd, loud enough for everyone to hear. "The crying girl came. Someone pinch her so we can all get..."
Look, the crying girl came. Someone pinch her so we can all get rich.
The crowd tittered. Zara felt the familiar sting, felt the old habit rising. Press it down, feel nothing. But this time, she let herself feel it. And she cried. Not because she was broken, not because she had lost, but because it hurt, and that was true, and she was done pretending it wasn't. The tears fell. Each one rang out, ting, 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 and each one bloomed into a golden flower where it landed, until she was standing in a ring of impossible gold blossoms that spread outward across the cobblestones in every direction. The crowd went utterly, completely silent. Then Zara walked forward, and the guards stepped aside without a word. She found the crystal spring at the heart of the festival grounds and pressed the seed into the wet earth beside it. The moment it touched the soil, the ground trembled gently, like a sigh, and a tree erupted upward, silver-leafed and shimmering, its branches stretching wide enough to shade the entire courtyard. Everyone gasped. The prince stepped forward from the crowd. He was not what Zara expected. He wasn't looking at the tree, or the gold flowers, or the spectacle of any of it. He was looking at her. "You're shaking," he said quietly, so only she could hear. "I just cried in front of everyone," she said. "I'm allowed to shake." He laughed, surprised and real. "What's your name?" "Zara," she said. "From a village so small it has no name." "That's the most interesting introduction I've heard all week," he said. And he meant it. Now, this is the part where most stories would end. Girl meets prince, magic happens, wedding bells, the end. But this story is not most stories, because Zara did not marry the prince that day. She told him she needed time to learn who she was when she wasn't surviving, to see what she wanted when she wasn't simply enduring. He waited, and while he waited, Zara went back to the village with no name, and she built a school beside the silver tree. Children came from 3 valleys over to learn there. She taught them what the old woman had taught her, that real feelings are not weaknesses, that grief is just love with nowhere to go, and that the most powerful thing you will ever do is feel something true in a world that keeps telling you not to. As for Liz and Calla, she invited them to the school too, because Zara understood by now that people who try to harvest other people's pain are usually just people who were never taught that their own pain was allowed. It took time. It wasn't easy. But slowly, even they began to bloom. And the prince? He came to the school one afternoon not in royal clothes, but in simple ones, carrying supplies for the children. He had been coming every week for a year. You know, Zara said, looking up from her work, you didn't have to do all this. I know, he said simply. I wanted to. And maybe that was enough. Maybe that was everything.
You know, you didn't have to do all this.
I know. I wanted to.
Remember, little ones and big ones too. Your tears are not your weakness. Your feelings are not a flaw. The most magical thing you will ever be is honestly, courageously, beautifully yourself. Thank you for joining Storytime with Gramps, where every story meets adventure. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear it tonight. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Do have a nice time, brave hearts.